in to here as well on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Facebook as well, streaming this one live. So yeah, we've got a bit of a rainstorm happening. So my apologies for it being quite so nasty as what it is right now. If you can't hear me or I've got some bit of feedback, I do apologize. So we'll get this underway and get you shared. I think we're already sharing the screen over on our friends at on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So I'm just sharing now on Zoom as well. So today we're talking about getting your content from your calendar, how to turn all that daily content that comes and goes so quickly in your life into something that's kind of engaging. So you're not always having to stretch and reach for great new material all the time, because there's a thing that happens with social media, even the less social ones like LinkedIn, is that we often feel like we're under pressure to deliver brand new, engaging, super highly qualified and quality stuff all the time. But the reality is that we don't need to produce that kind of level of stuff all the time. And what performs better off is the stuff that's from our lives, from our days, that people can relate to. So what we're talking about today is a bit of a shift in the way that we see the kind of content we're producing for. We tend to be, or we tend to have been taught to wait for those super creative genius moments, that we need to have these extraordinary experiences, meeting extraordinary people and achieving extraordinary things in order to have content that we deem as valuable, which puts all kinds of pressure and creative blocks on us that most of us are just not geared to take. There's some people who are very methodical about the content they're creating. I tend to be one of those as well. But for most people, they're looking for that creative moment, for something that's going to say, yes, that's the thing I want to do. I also want to shift your mindset into the idea that the everyday stuff is gold. That's your meetings, your conversations, even the people who cancel on you. They all contain these great stories that resonate way more authentically with your audience. So it doesn't mean that you need to necessarily talk about everything in your life and what you had for breakfast. We're not talking about that. We're talking about places where the content is being observed. You're not having to invent things. You're not having to make things up. And I think that's where we get so stuck. We get this pressure that we have to invent content, that we have to tell larger than life stories, when the truth is we all have this sort of gut feel about us, don't we, where we know when something's not quite true. Yes, there are some crazy people with crazy lives like mine, and then there's the rest of us who just live lives of quiet getting by, right? So the best content comes from taking notice of what you're already doing, not trying to seek the extraordinary moments, because the extraordinary moments don't happen that often. They're not that big a deal. The extraordinary moments are actually things that are not that real. So what I want you to do as we get into this, and I'm going to show you how I do it, is to look at your calendar as the major authority on the content you're going to do, because it contains all your meetings, all your daily stuff, the things that happened that were authentic. They actually happened to you, so you don't have to make anything up. They're already organized and structured and dated. So you've got this chronological framework you can go back to on any time, where you can just go back to last week and go, well, I haven't told that story yet. There's a story to tell. And it's very fresh. It always keeps coming up. So even if you're telling the same kind of principles, teaching the same lessons all the time, you're bringing a fresh perspective to it all the time. And I've got a framework. I'll show you how I do it. If it's worth putting in your calendar, it's worth considering for your content. And that's the principle I want you to think. If it's worth being in the calendar, it's worth being content as well. Now, obviously, personal stuff shouldn't be. We're not going to go down that path. Remember, we're not sharing what we had for breakfast unless it was something that came with a massive life lesson. So how do we turn calendar events into compelling stories? Well, there's what happened. So you can look back through all the calendar events or what happened. And then you can talk about how the feelings were. What were the authentic things that happened? Or was there a lesson that you learned out of it that reflects that, that links back to and is related to what you do? Okay, what service you provide, what products you sell. And then what is the next call to action? Now, we always think that calls to action have to be buy this, book this, book me, get my course, all that sort of stuff. A call to action doesn't have to be any of those things. A call to action can be as simple as telling people the next step. It doesn't have to be the next step to buy from you. We've got convinced that that's all we need to do is constantly sell, sell, sell. The reality is that the more we try and sell to someone, the less they want to be sold to. and they'll just unfollow you. But if we're giving that value that's always containing something good and something authentic and something that's actually relevant to someone's life, they will continue to go there and they will find an excuse to try and work with you at some stage. So we're going to go into my calendar here. So I'm just going to get out of there. You can still see my screen, hopefully. Got things all over here. I'm going to go into my calendar here. So my Outlook calendar. So in here, you'll be able to see all sorts of things. You can see the people I have meetings with, the little things I've done. Like I did this session with the Canterbury Institute of Management. So this was on Wednesday of last week. So what happened on Wednesday of last week? I was in this panel of questions that are asked between two entrepreneurs, myself and another entrepreneur who I'm very close with. And they were all students, international students who were studying to do masters and bachelors of various things such as business, accounting, and IT. So in amongst all that, there was lots of questions asked. And one of the questions I was asked really came to mind of somebody saying, well, what if I've put out 300 different resumes, 300 applications for a job, and I'm just now not getting a job? What do I do? How do I come back from that? So that was a great question for someone to ask. And I had an answer for that. And so did my colleague who was on the panel. So what do we do to turn that into something? Now, I'm going to sort of go back a little bit. We're going to talk about this panel that I was involved in last week at the Canterbury Institute of Management in Darwin. We've heard the story of what someone asked, and I haven't told you yet what I gave to them as an answer. But I'm going to go now into my content calendar of sorts. Now, it's not a calendar of things such as, oh, it's Mother's Day, oh, it's International, I don't know, Chickens with Big Legs Day, or whatever those awareness days and celebration days and silly days that we like to put in there that nobody reads. Like, honestly, the amount of people putting out Anzac Day posts who the rest of the year do not show any respect for veterans at all. They just suddenly make it on Anzac Day that they're going to make it all about Anzac Day. It's very tiresome. So what I'm looking for us to do is to create things that come from who we actually are, not who we're virtue signaling ourselves to be. So not that there's anything wrong with respecting our veterans, but consider whether that's really what you're doing or whether you're just running out of content ideas and that's what you put up on that day. So this is my content calendar. It's an app called Cortex. It's a free app that I use for writing. So it's got lots of it's got AI tools in it and all that. A guy called Dan Coe is a guy who came up with this, and it's kind of like if you've ever come across Notion, it's a bit like that. It's a writing tool mostly. I can do things like go down here in the bottom, bring up all the tools, and go. Here's the different elements that I can put in there, bulleted lists, to-do lists, all that kind of thing, and insert a video player, any of that kind of a block of code. Doesn't really matter what it is. I use it for the most basic thing, which is to see my content calendar in here, where I've created all across these weeks what I'm going to be posting about, and I've got a bit of a style in here. So let's just say this week, right? The first post of the week on Monday, 21st at 7 a.m. was a text post, and it was about digital stuff. So to do with social media or the digital skills or digital tools, and it was promotional in nature. So it was a bit of an ad for a workshop I'm doing, a free workshop. And then I have my video, which I've just started doing these videos on business books. So I'm looking at the things that we read in a business book that was quite popular that we didn't do anything with. That's my standard every day, and I sort of switch it around. Today, Monday, it was at 11 a.m. Tomorrow, it's coming in at 3 p.m. Yep. And then after that, it's coming in on, it's like right down at 11 a.m. on Thursday. So usually I'm doing 3 posts a day. So 2 written ones and 1 video one. So what this tells me already is what I need to write about. So let's just say, as a pretend, that I was going to do something which was about, let's see, something that matches up, confidence and actionable. So on Wednesday at 3 p.m., I'm going to be doing something that is about confidence and it's an actionable insight. That kind of matches what I was doing. So I'm going to put in there in that field next to it, Canterbury Institute panel. All right, so that just gives me a note there that I'm going to write about that. Now, that's fine. I've done that. Now, I haven't done any writing about it. It's just a note to say that's what I'm going to do. So when I come to write my content, I will do that. Now, I can go back to my calendar and let's just find something I'm going to put in for let's see what's on tomorrow. So an actionable business insight that's at 3. That was today, sorry. Confidence and inspiring. I've already written that one, so I won't do that. Digital introspective. Okay, something to do with digital tools. That's a bit of an introspective thing. So I'm going to go back through here. What time did I spend with someone around digital tools and social media last week? Well, what did I do? I hung out with Rifat and did some strategy. I did a workshop. Ah, there we go. I did a workshop with the Real Estate Institute about AI. That's a digital tool. So let's go in there. So in my, sorry, back to here, I've got my digital introspective. So it's all about the workshop I did with REINT. Okay, so now I've got a couple of pieces of content I'm going to work on. So the first one, it's in order. So tomorrow at 11 o'clock, I've got something about the workshop I did with REINT last week. So now I want to put that together. I want to make that into a story. Now I'm using another tool called Magic Post, which helps me to flesh these ideas out. Sometimes it gets me a absolutely perfect thing because it's learned my writing style, basically because it connects through to LinkedIn and learns my writing style. But I don't generally just copy and paste these things. In this, I've based these post types off those things that you'll see in my writing calendar: actionable, inspiring, introspective, promotional. So they're already there. So in my content calendar, I did, okay, I'm doing introspective and it's about digital tools. So let's go introspective. And I've got a bunch of different ideas here of what I could write about. Can it be a personal reflection, something thought provoking, something about who I am, or some kind of difficulty experienced? So I don't have a rant to do. So I'm going to do a little bit of a personal reflection. So I'm going to start off by just saying something about the story that I had. Last week, I did a workshop with an industry peak body about AI. You would think that a bunch of professionals would be wary of AI, but instead they were the opposite. They're a really, really keen bunch. They were so keen to learn how to get the most out of these tools. You see, these people are busy, very busy, too busy. And they were keen to see what they could do with the most common AI tools to get more done in less time. So that's what I'm writing in there. I've got some terrible spelling in there, so let's get that out. So now I've written that all in there, remembering that this tool is connected through to my LinkedIn, so it knows my writing style. It's got lots and lots of different examples of my writing and how I would write. So I'm going to generate a post here, a personal reflection that's introspective about digital tools. It was AI, and I got it from my calendar, which was a workshop that I did last week with the Real Estate Institute. So let's generate the post and see what it comes out with. And it's going to come out with a nicely written post. It's actually going to be, sometimes it's really quite awesome. So last week I discovered something that completely changed my assumptions about professionals and AI. I'd always thought that industry leaders would be the most resistant to artificial intelligence, protecting their expertise and all that. But there I was running a workshop for a peak body and the enthusiasm was off the charts. These weren't tech enthusiasts or startup founders. They were seasoned professionals from traditional sectors. The thing that struck me most was their pragmatism, no fear about AI taking their jobs, no philosophical debates about the ethics. Instead, they were frantically taking notes about ChatGPT prompts and asking about which AI tools could work best for their specific needs. This happened. Like, this is exactly what happened, right? And it makes perfect sense when you think about it. These people are drowning in work. They're juggling meetings, deadlines, staff issues, endless email threads. They don't have time to worry about AI is going to change the world. They just want to know if it can help them write that report in half the time. What really got me was when one of them said, I don't care if it's AI or a magic fairy doing the work. If it helps me get my head going to my kids earlier, I'm in. Oh my God, there was a conversation that was just like that. It wasn't exactly like a magic fairy, but they did say, I don't care if it's Microsoft Word or Clippy or ChatGPT. If it helps me get more done, I'm in. And that was a really similar conversation. This is where you go and go, whoa, how does this know all this? That's when it clicked. The AI revolution isn't being driven by tech companies or true futurists, being driven by busy professionals who just want to get more done. So while everyone's debating the future, these professionals are already using it to change their present. Honestly, I'm not even sure they care about what we think about that. They're too busy getting stuff done. I'll tell you now, that is so much like I would write that it's not funny because it's learned through the connection I've got in my account here with my existing writing that I've done on LinkedIn. It knows my style. So I could literally I could post this straight to LinkedIn now, but what I do, I post it into a posting tool that goes out to multiple places, including Facebook and sometimes to Instagram and places like that. So that's an example how I do that. So that's number one. I'm just going to take that and copy it in because it was a damn good post, and I might actually use that one later. Hey, all right. So I've got post number one. Now I want to do post number two. Going back here, and we had that next one, which was the actionable insight about confidence and the Canterbury Institute of Management panel. So I'll go back into my magic post, and you can do this in ChatGPT even. Like I can go to ChatGPT. I've got a GPT that I wrote here, a project that does pretty much the same thing but lays it out in more steps. But let's just use this one for now because it's just a bloody good tool. So we're going to go. It's what was it? Actionable. Yes, actionable. It's about confidence. So, what is it actionable about? What am I doing in my actionable? Am I giving striking advice? It actually was it's direct and incisive message to promote action or raise awareness. So, this one is when you're on a conference or workshop panel and the Q&A starts, you never quite know what you're going to be asked. Last week at a let's just say a panel for a bunch of soon to graduate international students, I was asked by a frustrated job seeker what they can do after applying for 300 jobs and not getting any of them. I suspected that it wasn't because they were incompetent or unemployable. I suspected that they were going for jobs that were way out of their experience and expertise, which was the truth in the end. So let's generate a post about that. So I've given it a fair bit of stuff. Let's see what it can do with that to make a better post. And then we've got job applications aren't the simple process that career advisors make them out to be. When someone tells me they've applied for 300 jobs, oops. Let's go. It's still going. Come on, back up the top. Up we go. There we go. When someone tells me to apply for 300 jobs without success, it's usually not because they're unemployable, lack skills, because they're aiming too high too soon. The frustration is real. The discipline is crushing. Temptation to keep shooting for those dream jobs is strong. But here's what's actually happening. Experience requirements aren't being met. Applications being auto-directed. This creates a cycle. Desperation. Confidence drops. So this is talking about the confidence. Truth is entry-level jobs exist for a reason. They're not just stepping stones. They're learning grounds. So it's telling me a pretty good thing. Like this is the way I would write. It's not the message I really wanted to get across, but I can then go and iterate on this. So I can go, well, that really wasn't what I was looking for. I'm going to take out that last bit that I wrote about suspecting something. I'm going to say, this person didn't need a hot tip. She had had many of them from so many people. She just wanted to vent, which is also true. And if we redo that, it'll give me a whole different feel again. So 2 different things that I got out of my calendar of things that happened last week. And I'm going to go back in my calendar in a second. Sometimes this is such LinkedInese, you're going to laugh when you see this, how it's written. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just listen when someone needs to be heard. I've been on countless panels where people are looking for that magic answer, that silver bullet will solve their problem. But what I saw in that moment wasn't someone seeking advice. It was someone who would reach their breaking point after 300 rejections. So this is a very LinkedInese kind of post. It's a little bit for me. So I probably want to look at that one again. But what I want to do is now take you through my calendar. So looking at the things I did a session with my coach. I did a meeting with my tax accountant. I did an article for my speaking business. I had a meeting with Amelia. I also had a meeting with Jimmy at the same time. That actually wasn't a meeting. That was work I was supposed to do, which I ended up doing today. And we met with Jimmy. I met with Civil Tech. I met with let's see, Ricky from the Small Business Champions in Darwin. He's awesome. Had an amazing meeting as always. It's just like walking away with a bit of sunshine in you. And then I had the Kindness Shake event on Thursday. I had I was writing that out. There's all this stuff that I've done. Had another meeting with a public speaking client, met with Territory Proud. There's all this stuff you can bring in. So I could say very quickly, this meeting I had with Ayush was a coaching meeting. I could talk about some of the things we discussed without going into depth with it. I can talk about having strategy talks with people or planning with people over breakfast and how cool. I love breakfast because I'm usually at my peak of the day. I'm full of caffeine and my brain's buzzing like crazy. And I could talk about what those times do in the context of what I do. So what I do is I talk about digital tools, I talk about business books, I talk about business and entrepreneurship, and I talk about confidence and public speaking. So what do those fit into? If I'm talking about having those meetings, that's business. And actual inside of business is if you're struggling to have these late afternoon meetings, put them at breakfast. What's wrong with going a little bit early to work if you're able to? You know, I don't have kids to drop off at school, so it's one thing for me to say that. But if that's something which works for you, that could be good as well. Just get the content from your calendar. You don't need to be going all over the place to find content and going through, tons of content building seminars and webinars and courses just to learn how to write poetry. You're not out there to write poetry. They're out there to find the insights that are already in your life that you're living, in the work that you're doing, and bringing that to people in only the way you can, because they are your stories. They're the things that you've done, you've achieved, you've overcome, you've faced, you've been challenged by, and they're all sitting there right there in your calendar. Well, hopefully that's given you a little bit to work with. Those tools again that I used today, Cortex, Kortex. It's a free tool you can use. It's a writing tool. It's a bit of a learning curve, not huge learning curve. It's actually fairly easy. It's very, very flexible. I might actually do a webinar coming up soon on how to use it and get the most out of it. Magic Post, which is magicpost.in, which is where I'm sort of iterating the kind of stuff I'm writing. ChatGPT is in there as well. And if you want any other sort of information on that, please do drop me a line. If you're listening to me on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, just message me there. I'll be able to answer from there. If not, reach out to me at the Darwin Innovation Hub, usually through LinkedIn again, and you'll be able to get some answers there. Thank you. Have a great night. And hopefully you've learned a little bit more about how to get some great content out of your day.